Jeez. Hello, hello. As you can see, I'm in my garage and, well, I'm on holiday, so I'm working on Lazygit. And I'm trying to finish off this migration I started a while back of all my integration tests. And what the situation was is there was this like folder called integration, or there still is, and the way that it works is it runs like for each of these tests, each of these is its own integration test. It'll run a bash script to set up a repo, and then it will basically run a Lazygit session, and it'll have a bunch of like pre-recorded key bindings to press. So the way it used to be done is that you would go and like record yourself interacting within Lazygit, and then it would save that here as JSON, and then replay it back again when it ran the test. And this was super convenient for getting tests written in the first place, but it is very hard to maintain because anything that you change, you basically have to re-record the whole thing from scratch, and it also doesn't really help you identify what went wrong. So it has this like actual and expected folders. There's nothing in this one at the moment, but the idea is we actually take a snapshot of the repo after the test is run, and then we actually commit that to Git, and like in CI when it runs the test, it compares the actual and the expected repos to check that they're the same. But it's very hard to understand what went wrong based on that, basically. There could have been like an error that came up like 2 seconds into the recording, and you wouldn't really know that easily. And then also the snapshot thing is it creates problems because there are certain things that are kind of, let's say, like pseudo-random. Like if you make a commit, who knows what the hash of that commit's going to be. And so you don't want to like include anything in the snapshot that involves commit hashes. So like that, it's very hard to get around that, and it requires you to circumvent it and rename commits and things like that. So the new process does not depend on snapshots at all. It's purely just, this is all the new stuff here. It's purely just you're actually using code to explain what you want to do, kind of like driving the program and doing assertions along the way. So for example, this one here is for deleting the checked out branch and then deleting another branch, or trying to delete the checked out branch. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to focus the branches view. We're going to assert that the lines contain this, this, and this, and that this one's selected. We're going to press the remove button. We're going to expect a pop-up that tells us we can't do that, and then we'll try the next item, which is this guy, try and remove that. It'll expect a pop-up again, and then we'll verify that we no longer have that branch there. So that's kind of the new approach. It makes it a lot easier to see where things went wrong. And it also makes it has various advantages. Like one of the benefits is that this can go as fast as possible, basically. So, this lines assertion, for example, will kind of initially check the existing rows in the branches view, as in like this thing over here. And if it doesn't match up, it kind of waits a bit and then checks again and waits a bit and checks again. But the idea is that as soon as it finds that match, it goes on to the next thing. Whereas with a recording, the best you can do is just try to apply a scaling factor to all the different timestamps of each key binding. So going back again to the example I'm showing here, see how there's just like a timestamp saying at this time, press this key, etc. So the best you can do here is just try and reduce the amount of time between key presses, but when you aren't checking on the right things being present before you press a key, sometimes things just won't behave the way you want to. So you might press a key too quickly and it gets applied to a particular view that you're in instead of some other view that you expect to come up, in about a second or so. So there's a whole lot of problems, and so so far on my holiday, I've been trying to clean up the syntax of writing integration tests, given that we already have a few here. It was getting a bit gnarly trying to manage the expanding set of things you could actually assert on and things you can kind of, like the ways you can drive the test. So here we are. I've got the syntax to a position where I'm happy with it, and I now want to just start migrating some tests across. And my hope with this video is that if you're like somebody who's thinking of maybe contributing to Lazygit, then you might say, hey, that looks pretty cool, I might help out. Because there's a lot of things here to do, and it can be a bit time consuming. But at any rate, I think it's pretty cool just to go through the process anyway. Okay, so let me just confirm I'm actually recording this thing, because that would be embarrassing if I wasn't. Okay, so what's this one? Discard old file changes. So the way that it typically works is you want to create a new test file and just try and transcribe what's happening. Now sometimes with these recorded tests, like it's doing more than necessary. It's kind of doing a bit overkill, just because when you're recording things, you can do whatever you want. Whereas in these, when you're actually writing with code, you kind of want to just do the most minimal thing possible to verify what you want to verify. Let's see. So this thing's called discard old file changes. And what I want to do is, I guess I want to run this test. There's a way to do that. You gotta go run this guy. So this TUI command. And it's going to bring up a little TUI for me that actually contains my integration test. So discard old file changes. I'm going to press T. You can see down here to run at the original speed, you just press T. So let's see what that does. Okay, so it comes down, grabs a file, discards it, and that's it. Okay, and I'm going to press S to do this in sandbox mode. So it's going down here, it's going into this commit by pressing enter, and then it's deleting one of the two files, and then that's basically it. I think that's what it was. And what that's doing in the background is just doing an interactive rebase and removing the file from the commit. So I don't know why this guy's here, file 3. Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, a lot of this stuff is superfluous. Many of these bash scripts were just copied and pasted, so they contain stuff you don't actually need. But it sounds like the important thing is that we have this file here, this commit where we remove one of the files, and we just assert that it's gone afterwards. So I'm happy with that. Let's just look at the test again in slow-mo, just verify what it does. So it comes down to 2 files, which has file Z, removes that. Okay. So now I've got to find a good place to put this. So, is this a commit thing? I guess it is. So I'm just going to grab an existing test, copy and paste it. I'll say discard old file change.go. And I'll rename the thing to discard old file change. What was the description we had on the other one? So I can just reuse that same description. And we'll need to set up the repo, similar to how we're doing it in the actual bash script. So we've got this thing here. I don't know why this file was needed, so we can remove that. Let's see, so it goes and says we're going to create file 0, add it, commit it, add 2 files to the next one, and then add 1 file again. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this across. So for our integration test, we have this shell struct, which has some of these things kind of like conveniently done for us. So create file and add, for example. I'll call it file 0, I guess. File 0. And then I'm going to go shell.commit, first commit. And then I'm going to have a couple of files here. So this is going to be file 1. I'll call this file to remove. this here is the file name and this is the content. I'm just making them the same. Let's say commit to change. And then we have another one on top of that. So file 3, create file and add, and this will be third commit. Okay, so that can go. I'll just scrap the stuff that's here. So we're going to start off in the files panel, and I want to focus the commits panel. So is that already happening here? Right. So I can get rid of this stuff. So I want to focus the commits panel. I'll have a couple of lines. So we'll have on top is going to be the third commit, and that's going to be selected. Then there'll be the commit to change, and then the first commit. So I'll just start by testing this and seeing if that passes. I'm going to go Command Option Shift T is a key binding that I have to run this thing, and it panicked. Oh yes, conveniently I added this error message myself because I knew I would forget to do this. I need to go to this file, and I got to add this thing. So discard old file change. This is just my list of tests. So I'll run that again. Okay, that works. So it didn't fail. So far so good. And the next thing I want to do is I want to select the next line, select next item, and then I want to press enter to view the files of that. And then I suppose I want to say, okay, well now we expect to be in the commit files view. Commit files. And I'll just assert that it is focused. I suppose it'll need to have a couple of lines as well. So we expect there to be file, I guess 1, and then file to remove. Let's see if that passes. And then what? I'm gonna want to select next item. Excuse the barking dogs. And then I'm going to press keys universal.remove, and I actually have no idea what happens after that. So let's just let's run this in sandbox mode. So I can go run task, run this thing in a sandbox. And I'm going down to the commits panel, entering in this guy. Okay, it is file 1 and file to remove in that order, so that's good. So I select the next one, I press D, discard file changes. Okay, so now what happens is I want to say t.expect popup.confirmation, and the title is going to equal discard file changes, and the content is going to contain, are you sure you want to discard this commits changes to this file? And let's just put this on a separate line. I'm going to say yes, I do. So if I do that in the real world, press yes. Okay, so now I expect back in my commit files panel, it'll no longer have this thing here. It'll just have file 1. And I guess I'm pretty satisfied with that. What I want to do maybe separately is just verify that in terms of the actual file system, it's gone. So I can go f.filesystem.path not present file to remove. Okay, so if that is satisfied, then I'll be happy. So let's run that and see what happens. Cool. Okay, so that passes. Something that I might want to do is comment out some code. So currently it recompiles Lazygit before running a test, but we don't need to do that in this case because we're just running, like, we're just changing the integration test code. So temp, somewhere here there's a place where I actually create this thing. Temp Lazygit. Build Lazygit. Aha! I actually was doing this before. Okay, so let's just see if that speeds things up a bit. Not really. Weird. Anyway. So that's good. So I'm happy with that. I'll go to the this test, the old one, and I'm just going to remove it. So delete that. And let's see. So I want to commit these guys and say remove. Oh, sorry, I should be on the master branch. Migrate even more tests. Remove or migrate. Discard old file change test. Cool. I'll leave this guy here. Good. Okay, so we've got one down. Maybe let's just do one more. So discard stage changes. What does this do? So it's a similar setup to before. Let's run this guy. So go run. I should probably just have this in VS Code. Oh, I already do. Right, so I can say run task, this thing. But I can't see my cursor for some reason. Discarding stage changes. Let's run this in slow-mo. One more time. Okay, so this is why using recordings is hard, because it's kind of hard to see what even happened. So in the setup, let's see, it creates some files, and then it modifies each of them. And then I believe what is happening in the test, if I run it in sandbox mode, I think the idea is that, oh sorry, file 3 is a new file. 0 does not get modified, 1 and 2 do get modified. So here I'm going to say, I think it's staging file 1, so that it's actually the only staged file. And then it's going Shift D. And I believe it must be using a key binding here to discard the stage changes. So using like capital S. But in my tests, I'm happy to just say what the menu item is you should actually select. Because there could be some other test that handles using the specific key binding. So in this case, I will discard stage changes, and it seems like that is what we got before. So let's just go back, let's run it again, just verify that's what happens. So it gets staged. Okay. Alright. Cool, so we'll close this and discard staged changes. Now this has nothing to do with commits. So I guess it's a file thing. So let's, we actually already got discard changes, but that's a bit hectic. Just gonna copy this, paste it, call it discard staged changes.go. And let's see, what was the description for this guy? Sure, discarding stage changes. Okay. Cool. This thing here is just saying I want to show the file tree. So that's fine. Not that it would make a difference. I think actually we don't even need that here, so let's just get rid of it. So we want to copy across the same approach we took before. So you want to create 3 files, each in their own commit, and then you want to modify a couple of them. So shell.create file and add file 1, shell.commit, first commit. Same deal with this other guy. I don't even know why they need to be in separate commits though. Like that doesn't, it's not necessary. So I'm just gonna get rid of this, and we'll just add a couple of these guys here. So 1, 2, and then the idea was that there was another file added, file 3. So I think 1 was modified. New content. Update file. Do we add it? No, we don't add it. We just create an update. Okay, so we create these 2 files, you put them in a commit, then you create a new file, which will be like untracked, and then you update one of the files. Do we update both of them? I think we could go 1 and 2. Yeah, and we'll just only stage one of those 2 changes. Okay, so I want to be in the files. I mean, by default, you start in the files panel, so I should just say is focused. And you're going to contain, let's see, file 1, 2, and 3. Let's just see if that passes. Okay, 1, 2, 3 files. I don't know why it's not passing. Sometimes it fails to like die for a good reason. Let's just run it again. I need to look into that issue. Typically what will happen is it'll just like retry a few times and then we'll tell you why it failed, but what the fuck? Still not doing anything. What's going on here? Does the line count check? What if I just do this? Is it satisfied if I just do that? No. What? Can I interact with this thing? I can, what the fuck? Why is it in sandbox mode? That makes no sense. Let's get back to the, let's get rid of this thing just in case that was causing issues. Okay, that seemed to work. Huh, funny. Okay, so now, okay, so we have these 3 files, and may as well say the first one's selected. And I'm going to press primary action. So every panel has like a primary action, which is basically just pressing space. So that will stage the file. And what I might even do is, rather than just say contains, say it matches a regex. And we'll say like, how does it actually look? Something's modified. What does that look like? Let's test this out. Oh, that worked. See if that works. In fact, this doesn't even need a regex. File 1, file 2, file 3. Okay, this guy's gonna fail because you're not allowed to use these just on their own. But ignoring that, for these 3 things, I'll press the primary action. I'll just verify that afterwards this is now staged, so the M's on the left, and the next thing is to press keys.files.remove reset options. Let's just do that and do a wait for like 10 seconds. Good, so that's what I wanted. And then I'm gonna say expect a pop-up. In this case it's a menu. The title doesn't actually, there is no title, so I'll just leave it as blank. I'm going to select the option that contains, was it remove stage changes? Let's give that a go. Discard staged changes. .confirm. Cool, and then I can just check on this guy again. That, let's see, my lines will now no longer have file 1 in them. It'll just be 2 and 3. And I suppose, so the change we had here was adding new content to file 1. Might rename this to make it a bit easier actually. File to remove. So what I want to verify is that, I mean, it's not really removing it, it's more like discarding the changes of, but that's fine. I want to assert that the content of the file is actually what I expect it to be, which is to say that it's just whatever it was when we made this commit here. So it should have this content. I might call this original content. Okay, so what I want to do is I need some way to assert in terms of the file system what the actual content of the file is. So I have a file system struct. I want to go and add something to this to do that for me. So file contains content. Says that the path that the file at the given path has the given content. And I suppose actually I can use a matcher here. So so the matcher, a matcher is like, you can use like contains, does not contain, matches regex, or equals at the moment. So let's try and use that here. So there's this thing called assert with retries, which effectively just goes and says we'll just keep retrying this at like with a bit of a back off to wait for the thing to be true, and if it's still false at the end, we'll return this error. So I suppose if the path doesn't exist, that's a problem. So if that is true, return false. So if the path does exist, then I'll say os dot read file, reads the named file, returns the contents. I was just wondering if that internally would just tell us that the file doesn't exist. You would assume that it would, in which case we probably don't need this thing here. So output error equals this, and pass in the path. If error is not equal to nil, then unexpected error when reading file content at path s. Okay, and I'm going to say, so now that I have the output, I'm going to have to use my matcher on it. And self.match string, how does that work? Takes a matcher, context, and I think we'll get value. Set with retries, matcher.context.context.test. It seems a bit superfluous. I'm just going to copy this thing here. And I'm already inside this thing actually. That's kind of funny. So string output equals string output. We're testing the string output, and this context thing, we may not need it. What does this thing do? Test. Why can't I use this? Oh, whoops. Content. Oh, I might as well just call it matcher. So this is just some context for if there's an error. So I guess it doesn't necessarily matter. It returns a boolean anyway. So I'll just say okay. And then and then return okay. Unexpected content at path. This thing. How do I do this again? Expected Say that it's saying contains. Expected this to be found in this. Maybe I do need this. So that's the error message. Let's grab that error. Fucking so annoying when you can't use an error twice. Nope. If. Not okay. Return false mt does printf. Unexpected content in file Oh, it's because it's a string. Okay. So let's see if that works. Should be original content. I guess equals works. Equals. And let's try that. And looks like because of alphabetical order, I gotta rearrange this shit. So select next item. Let's try that. Okay, get rid of that thing as well. We had a failure. Unexpected selected line index in view file. Expected 0 got 1. Who's complaining about that? 43. Maybe this guy's selected. Yes, because this guy will move up to replace this guy. So it'll still be the second line that's selected. Alright, let's test that again. I mean, arguably you don't even need to test this thing, but I just like it for the sake of readability, where you kind of understand, the person who reads the test understands what's happening. And looks like that passed. I'm just going to put a thing in here to force it to fail to see what happens. And it says unexpected content in file to remove expected original content to equal original content blah. Sweet. Okay, good. So that is perfect. Okay, now does this need any comments? So we focus the files view. I suppose we should make it clear that the staged file has been removed. The file should have the same content that it originally had, given that that was committed already. Okay, cool. So that's good. And let's see what we can stage here. So yeah, so now I'm just going to remove this guy. Migrate, discard, stage, changes, test. Cool. Okay, I'll do one more and then we'll wrap this up. And I'll keep going in the background. Exclude, git, ignore. What's that do? In this test, we attempt to add a .gitignore to .git/info/exclude to ensure Lazygit rejects the action. Cool. So let's bring up that TUI again. Okay, so we'll run this in slow-mo. We have a gitignore. We're trying to add it to gitignore, and it says we can't do that. Okay. So if we look at the setup.sh, all we're doing is creating a single commit, which may not even be necessary. And then we're putting something into .gitignore so that it's modified. Okay. And where should this go? Gitignore. Well, I guess it's like a file-based thing. So I'll just copy this. Ignore, gitignore. So let's see. Failed attempt at ignoring the gitignore file. I just want to confirm that is it trying to ignore it or exclude it? Trying to exclude it. Exclude. I honestly don't even know the difference, but that's okay. So we're just going to create a file .gitignore, and the original test was just adding something junk into it. It probably doesn't even matter. I can just do an empty string. Yep. Okay, and then I'll be in my files panel. I expect to see my .gitignore. I'm going to press keys.files.ignore file. And then I expect to be in a menu, so I'll just get rid of this stuff. And I'll run this thing in sandbox mode to see what it actually looks like. So press I. I'm going to add to this thing. I wish I could grab text from here. So the title is ignore or exclude file. And I really need to spend some time fixing up the casing on this stuff. It really should just all use sentence casing, but anyway. Select contains. Add to .git info exclude. .confirm. And then t.expect pop up .alert. So if I actually try and do that, it's going to be error content equals cannot exclude .gitignore. Okay. Could I ignore the gitignore? No, I can't do either. I may as well just try doing both of these. So let's try doing it again. One of the things that's useful here is if you use this tap function, it lets you kind of continue using the focus of the original view and just do some extra stuff on the side. So I can come back here and just try and ignore the file again. And this time I will actually say the other one, add to .gitignore. So if I, whoops, if I try and do that now, not here, add to .gitignore, if I try and do that, cannot ignore. Yep. Okay, I'm happy with that. That needs to be confirmed. So let's run this. Cool. And let's run it slowly, just to verify what's actually happening. Cool. I'll just confirm afterwards. File system dot gitignore contains or equals nothing. Because if this thing actually was lying to you and actually it did exclude or it did ignore the gitignore in the gitignore, then we'd want to know about that. And I suppose also we want to verify this other thing doesn't exist, so path not present, this guy. I assume that it wouldn't be. I mean, I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's there by default. Oh shit. Whenever you see a pause at the end, it means it's giving it more time for the assertion to be true. But here it's going to tell us it actually does exist. So what's the content in that then? So let's just assume that it's empty. It's not empty. It's got a bunch of random crap in it. Well, what I want to verify is that it does not mention my .gitignore. So, not contains .gitignore. Does not contain. Okay, that worked. And just to make sure that it's actually working properly, let's see something that it actually does contain, ds store for example. Let's see if it, that's not all caps, ds store. Let's see if it fails on that. Yeah, it does, cool. Okay. So just verify that fails with the expected message. Sometimes it just doesn't fail for some reason. I don't understand why that happens. It's got to be something to do with this assert with retries function. It's sleeping, it's going through this array here. It shouldn't take more than like 6 or so seconds, which seems like a long time, but on CI we run it in parallel, so that's part of the reason why. Set with retries, have a message, have a wait time, you loop through it. This has to terminate because there's a finite number of elements in this slice, and you run the test. And if we get outside of here, then we fail. And in the case of this thing, this is our test. None of these things would get stuck, you would think. Does not contain. Yeah, like the strings dot contains should be instantaneous. So I don't know why it's failing to fail there. but I'll need to look into that some other time. At any rate, this test is now passing. I'll just run it again to make sure. Cool. And I can now go and remove the original. Sweet. Okay. Migrate. Ignore. Git ignore. Integration test. I might actually say file excluding and ignoring. Cool. Alright, well, that does it for today. Thanks for watching, and if you are interested in either helping out migrate some of these integration tests or write some new ones, just reach out. We have a Discord that I'll add in the video description, where most of like informal discussion takes place. But otherwise, you can just kind of even create an issue for like whatever test you want to migrate and start there. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.